Welcome everybody to today's webinar on monitoring and evaluation of reintegration. I am Lopa Bhattacharjee, the project coordinator for RISE Learning Network and the regional coordinator for South and Central Asia region. I'm joined here by my colleague Jade T-Menson, the regional coordination advisor for the Sub-Saharan Africa region. I would like to give you a brief background about the RISE Learning Network, which is a project jointly implemented by Family for Every Child, a global alliance of national civil society organizations, RETRAC, an international NGO working with street-connected children, and the International Center for Researching Child Sexual Exploitation, Violence and Trafficking in the University of Bedfordshire. The project is supported by Oak Foundation from 2015 to 2018. The RISE Learning Network aims to promote and facilitate learning on recovery and reintegration approaches that improve outcomes for children and adolescents affected by sexual exploitation. Today's webinar is the first of the series on the topic of monitoring and evaluation of reintegration of children. I now hand over the presentation to my colleague, Jade. Jade, over to you.
Thank you, Lopa. The presentation will cover the importance of monitoring and evaluating reintegration programs and briefly introduce this RISE Learning project. First of all, why monitor and evaluate reintegration programs and why the need for this RISE project on M&E of reintegration of children. At the moment, there is much attention and resources being put into reintegrating different groups of children. However, there is still a lack of evidence concerning the effectiveness of these reintegration programs. And when evaluations do take place, the focus tends to be on the program objectives rather than on how and why activities benefited the child, as well as subsequent impact on families and communities. This gap has been highlighted by the Interagency Group on Children's Reintegration, as well as an earlier project on child recovery and reintegration funded by Oak Foundation called the Home Project, and an initial scoping on M&E practice done in the 3 subregions of RISE. Adequate efforts, therefore, must be made to monitor and evaluate programs in order to assess whether reintegration has been meaningfully achieved for the benefit of the children and their families who are being supported. Moreover, with finite resources available for reintegration work, such knowledge is necessary for practitioners, donors, and policymakers in order to advise on the most effective program models to fund, replicate, and scale up. In short, when M&E is done well, it can tell us not only what works, but how and for whom. How do we define and understand reintegration? Reintegration is defined in the Interagency Guidelines for Children's Reintegration as the process of a separated child making what is anticipated to be a permanent transition back to his or her family and community in order to receive protection and care and to find a sense of belonging and purpose in all spheres of life. It's important to emphasize that reintegration is both a process and an outcome, meaning it's not just about the process of physically returning home, but also about the ultimate desired outcomes of the process, including the child experiencing positive changes such as being safe and cared for, feeling accepted, and having self-esteem and hope for the future. It should be added that reintegration is a complex process, and there is no one-size-fits-all reintegration journey. The length of the process will vary from child to child and involves working with families and communities, including local child protection systems. Effective M&E of reintegration of children has to take into account the perspectives of said children in terms of what they also consider as meaningful reintegration. And this should further translate into incorporating relevant child-centered indicators for measuring progress and changes. And what you see on this slide are examples of definitions of reintegration given by young people who were part of a 2013 consultation organized by the Home Project. So you have, for instance, a young person in Uganda saying that from their point of view, reintegration encompasses being respected by people in society, financial independence, being a spokesperson or role model for other youth in the community, and having very good and trusted friends. Also, young people from Serbia stating that a successfully reintegrated child is a child that is healthy, loved, satisfied and laughing, living in a nonviolent family and attending school. And the last example from Albania defines reintegration in terms of having a safe house to live in, living independently or with family, having a job and feeling happy and safe. So how do we monitor and evaluate reintegration programs? The monitoring process is an ongoing routine assessment of a project or a program, that captures outputs and outcomes, whereas an evaluation is a systematic and objective assessment of the project or program at one point in time, usually midterm and/or end term. In a way, monitoring functions mainly at the activity level, focusing on continuous oversight of program activities to make sure that intended results are being achieved and correction action is taken where necessary. On the other hand, evaluation functions more at the program level to assess the overall impact or effectiveness of a program or project. So in terms of methods for monitoring and evaluating programs, depending on your identified indicators being the quantitative and qualitative weights you'll be using to measure the changes resulting from program activities, there are different methods and tools that can be used to collect and analyze M&E data. Quantitative methods are numbers-based. They tend to be used to answer questions like how much and how many, and include data collected from registers, participation lists, surveys, and questionnaires. While qualitative methods express information in a narrative or descriptive format to help us understand why and how changes occur. Such methods include interviews, case studies, focus group discussions, and participatory tools. Finally, mixed methods combine the two elements by using both methods that collect qualitative and quantitative data. This approach often generates a good overall picture and allows for cross-checking through triangulation. Moving on to participatory methods. When conducting M&E of reintegration programs, it's important to involve the participation of beneficiaries. Hearing directly from children about what they think of your program and how it has helped them in their reintegration journey plays a fundamental role in ensuring that programs are being created and implemented according to children's self-expressed needs, interests, and opinions. It also enhances accountability on the part of service-providing organizations and may help to empower children whose views and opinions are being taken alongside those of service professionals. Given the type of information collected, participatory methods are often qualitative in nature and can include drawing, games and photography, film, and drama. It's important to add that no method is inherently participatory. It really depends on how the method is being used to draw out beneficiaries' perspectives. Also, effective participation of children in the M&E process should be informed by a consideration of the evolving capacities and circumstances of the child, as well as a commitment to understanding and recording information from the child's viewpoints, and of course, adoption of appropriate ethical protocols. In terms of getting started, if you're new to M&E, or you have only started collecting basic information about your program activities, it's advisable to start off with a simple M&E plan that collects relevant quantitative and qualitative information needed to get a more complete picture of the progress of your program or project's reintegration effort. For example, to gather output results, create a simple table to allow you to track the number of activities you undertake each month and how many beneficiaries participate in these activities. To gather outcome results, pick a simple participatory tool to gather information about the changes in children's lives. Be sure to present your data in a clear way and create space for the information to be critically discussed in order for it to be useful. Also, when establishing a system to collect M&E data, it's crucial to take into account organizational capacity and resources and choose appropriate methods accordingly. I'll now talk briefly about this learning project and the RISE M&E of Reintegration Toolkit. At the core of the RISE Learning Project on M&E of Reintegration of Children is the community of learning. This virtual community of learning comprises NGOs in the 3 subregions of RISE, selected through an expression of interest process, who have committed to sharing existing practice and learning around effective M&E and trying out some new and innovative methods and approaches from the RISE Toolkit. In addition, through our website and webinars, we hope to engage a wider stakeholder base on this topic of M&E of reintegration of children, and also broadly disseminate the project's output. To this end, the RISE M&E Toolkit is a key available resource which provides information on what could be measured to assess reintegration and how this information could be collected. The toolkit is currently a draft document which will be updated with examples of promising practice and other lessons learned at the end of this project. Our overall aim, therefore, is for both the community of learning and toolkit to support strengthening of awareness and capacities of organizations on M&E of reintegration, in addition to capturing learning and good practice to positively influence wider policy and practice on the ground. We therefore invite you to find further information about the project and also access the toolkit through our website, and also share with us your thoughts and learning on this topic. If you have any questions, please also contact either me or Lopa. Our contact information is currently being displayed on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you, Jade, for that very interesting presentation explaining the basic concepts of why do we do M&E.